Weil Gotshal, one of the most prestigious law firms in the country, announced massive layoffs this week, saying it was essential to retain its, quote, historic profitability in the new normal. Well, what does this mean for the legal profession? Joining us now to talk about this, Stephen Harper. He's law professor at Northwestern University and author of The Lawyer Bubble, A Profession in Crisis. Stephen, let me just ask you, during the financial crisis, we saw Wall Street firms and big banks scaling back. We saw in corporate America a lot of big firms also cutting back and making changes. And it seemed like the legal profession was somewhat unscathed until now. Is this just a short-term problem for Weil Gotshal as one law firm, or do you see fundamental changes coming to the profession?
I think the answer is both. There are some unique things about Weil. Over the last few years, it benefited greatly from some enormously lucrative bankruptcy matters, including Lehman Brothers, for example, that allowed it to really thrive in various areas of its business. And as those large bankruptcy matters have winded down, I suspect they're finding themselves with, well, I don't suspect, it seems clear they're finding themselves with not enough work for the people who no longer have that work to do. But there is something broader happening in the profession. And that has to do with the evolution of the profession from what, at least historically, has been a collegial profession, as distinct from what it now is becoming, at least in the big law segment, which is a collection of short-term profit-maximizing businesses.
Yeah, we don't often think of the law industry in profit and loss terms. It's more about winning and losing cases. But you made an intriguing point there. There's not as much business. Are we less of a litigious society now?
Oh, no, I don't think so.
Exactly.
I think what's happening.
This is ironic, isn't it?
No, well, it's ironic in some ways, although it's predictable in others. There have been tremendous changes. Technology, for example, has made changes in terms of the kinds of things that you no longer need lawyers to do. If I'm a client and I can have a choice of either running a computer program to separate out some documents or paying some associate who's right out of law school $300 or $400 an hour, it becomes a pretty easy choice. So you have that sort of thing happening, but then you also have, I think, a different kind of attitude that is set in that has to do with what's happening in terms of the way people are choosing to lead their firms. And it's not uniform, it's not universal. There are firms that are exceptions, but the prevailing model is one that really is focused on short-term thinking. And as you mentioned, Bill, in an era where there's big law firms in particular, in terms of the high end, although there's lots of litigation and we're a litigious society, the demand for high-end work has actually been flat for the past several years. And in that climate, law firms are trying to essentially buy top-line revenue growth by rating each other's partners. So that creates a further need to make sure that you are continuing to have lots of profits for your firm and your partners, so you can attract that kind of talent.
Stephen, you were a practicing attorney at a prestigious firm in Chicago for many, many years, I think 30 years, and you've written a critical book about the profession, and yet now you are a law professor. So what do you tell your law students who are aspiring attorneys? Choose another line of work?
Yeah, well, the ones that I teach as an adjunct in the Northwestern Trial Advocacy Program, there isn't a lot to tell them because they're already there. So all I can do for them, and what I've been doing in the 15 or 20 years that I've been part of that program, is to try to help them develop the best possible advocacy skills. The other course that I teach, though, is at the undergraduate level, where students are tracking themselves. It's an advanced seminar. They're tracking themselves into law school, but without any real clear notion of why or what it'll mean or what the career really will be. And, the media images from Alicia Florrick at The Good Wife, I mean, who wouldn't want to lead that kind of life? Right. But that's what frames a lot of expectations of these undergraduates. So,
well, you've given us a good picture, a snapshot of what's ahead. Thank you so much, Stephen, for coming on the program. Stephen Harper.
Thanks for having me on.
Professor at Northwestern.